Hi everyone, this is Andrew Prima, Ukrainian American living and reporting from Ukraine. I'm a founder of Ukraine Business News, UBN.news, reporting from Kiev, Ukraine. In today's podcast, 34th week of war in Ukraine, we will cover the following topics. Capital of Ukraine attacked by Iranian drones, Russia has changed its strategy, and latest news from the front lines of Kherson region. On Monday, October 17th, Russia attacked Kiev with nearly 30 kamikaze drones, killing four civilians, including a pregnant woman and her husband. Right a few days after Vladimir Putin said there would be no more massive strikes on Ukraine. As you, as you remember, after Ukraine armed forces damaged Crimean Bridge, Russia strikes Russia started striking all the cities of Ukraine, including the capital, killing civilians. A Ukrainian official said that Victoria and Bogdan, the young couple, both at the age of 34, were found dead after a residential building was struck by the city's central Shevchenkiv district. Victoria was 6 months pregnant. The capital's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, said that the building was attacked by Iranian-made drone. Videos, multiple videos showed that the Iranian Shahid drone, rebranded by Russia's as Geran 2, with a distinctive triangle shape, flying low over the city, then crashing into the ground and exploding, prompting terrified onlookers to flee. Five explosions were heard in the capital after 28 drones were launched toward the city by Russian military. The others were shot down from the ground by small arms fire and other air defenses. The sound of the Iranian drone can be heard from the long distance, so police and military personnel used rifles to shoot down the drones. So the civilians, militants using any any weapon, any methods just to shut down those drones. Some of them succeeded, some of them not. However, if the drone falls on the ground, it would detonate and destroy everything around. This is why the Ukrainian government forbade civilians from shooting down drones with their guns. It might cause casualties of civilians. The mayor of Ukraine's capital, Vitaly Klitschko, said that four people were killed after the residential building was hit, while 18 residents were rescued, including two from under the rubble. A search and rescue operation on the site was continued. On October 19th, 2 days later, an air alert was also announced throughout Ukraine. Around the same time, Russian dictator Putin declared martial law in the captured territories of Kherson, Zaporizhia, Luhansk, and Donetsk regions. On October 19th, 12 targets were destroyed by Ukraine air defense. Among them were two cruise missiles and eight Iran made drones. The Air Force reported that at noon, the enemy attacked Ukraine from the northeastern direction, firing six cruise missiles from Tu-95 and Tu-160 missile bombers. One missile was destroyed by the fighter aircraft, while one missile was destroyed by an anti-aircraft missile unit of Center Air Command in Kiev and Vinnytsia regions. Two more missiles were shot down by the air defense of the ground forces of Chernigiv region. It also reported that at the same time as missile attack, the occupiers attacked Ukraine with Iranian-made Shahid 136 kamikaze drones from the northern direction, particularly from the territory of Belarus. As of 3:30 p.m., The air defense forces of the Center Air Command destroyed 10 such drones. Mostly, drone attacks are aimed at infrastructure of Ukraine, specifically energy facilities, power plants, and electricity lines. The goal of the enemy to freeze Ukraine to death. The winter season is coming, and without electricity, the enemy plans to sow panic among the Ukrainians. It seems that after a series of defeats on the battlefield, the aggressor decided to bet on missile drone terror. Only from October 7th to October 18th, Russia carried out about 190 massive strikes with missiles and drones on Ukraine. As a result, 16 regions and more than 400 infrastructure facilities were affected. According to Ukrainian Ministry of Energy, about 30% of population of Ukraine were left without electricity. So, with the new strategy, the aggressor has several goals. First of all, he wants to exhaust Ukrainians, to create the impression that missiles and drones can fall on our heads in any way, in the regional center or small town, in the east, in the west, in the middle of the city, in the center, in the middle of the capital, in the middle of capital, or in the west of the country. It can happen anytime, at night or during the day, in the morning when everyone is going to work and taking their children to school. But such tactics will not work. The Russians don't take into account that this is an existential war for Ukrainians. We're the same cornered beast that Putin loved to talk about. He left us no choice. We can only win and survive. It is no longer possible to be tired, scared, and give up under such circumstances. Therefore, our collective pain threshold is higher than that of the enemy. Each new wave of terror forces us to look for countermeasures, adapt, and work harder on the rear and at the front. Another goal of the Russian aggressor is to show the Western allies and the whole world who is the boss, intimidate, to force to reduce the supply of military and financial aid, and eventually bring Ukraine to the negotiation table. However, after 8 months of full scale invasion and numerous gestures of goodwill, the myth of the terrifying power of the Russian army has been dispelled, and the new geopolitical reality makes the West's support for Ukraine indispensable. On the contrary, Ukraine will receive even more modern weapons. Even Germany, who's been hesitant for a long time, seems to have finally woken up and is promising a large package of military aid. And the NATO Secretary General is announcing new weapons to combat drones. But of course, these are only public statements, and we can only guess about non public work with our allies. Finally, the aggressor wants to renew the image of strong Putin, which has significantly been shaken in recent months. So much so that in the Russian information space, public criticism of Tsar began to be heard, and conflicts in the ranks of the entourage intensified. New images of destruction and victims among the peaceful population in Ukraine distract the Russian audience from the evi- from the events at the front. But this propaganda influence will have a short-term effect, and in some time, the doubts about the end of this war will only grow. Therefore, missile and drone terror is unlikely to be able to change the course of the war and make us lose the strategic initiative at the front rather than opposite. The recent Putin's introduction of martial law indicates that he cannot cope with the situation under normal conditions in his usual system of governance, and all processes have gone out of control. Moreover, no matter how much the Kremlin would like to admit it, we are witnessing the beginning of the end of Russia. Now, I will explain why and what is happening. Considering that all processes have not been going according to the plan for a long time, and the situation with the war is getting out of control. Putin is trying to encapsulate the country, fearing a spontaneous outbreak of protests. And protests is possible today in the Russian Federation more than ever. The population's anxiety is growing, confidence in the future is falling, the mobilization has lowered the authorities' rating, and the quick funerals have frightened many Russians of the mobilization. All the triggers turbulence in Russia today, which the Kremlin cannot cope with on its own. As a result, Putin decided to delegate authority to the regions, transfer responsibility to the governors, and make them feudal lords. Increasingly, the Kremlin has taken away the powers of the governors for many years, and today it is forced to return them. At the same time, fearing losing control over governors, Putin also launched a decision making process through regional headquarters. Russian political scientist Kirill Rogov admits the amount of administrative chaos will increase. The idea of normality of life, which the Kremlin took care to preserve in the first months of the war, will finally fade into oblivion, and the idea of abnormality of life, now prescribed by decrees, lists, and regulations, will take its place. Maintaining the level of abnormality seems to be the direct responsibility of regional headquarters and governors, despite the fact that this abnormality has no practical purpose. The most interesting thing is that now the mobilization will be called partial as well, but will become permanent. Only now it would not be Putin's mobilization, but the governors. Everything is based on the principle the king is good, and the servants and slaves are bad. At the same time, the new martial law regime doesn't have clearly defined legal norms and no legal basis in the current legislation. This means that authorities will not have any restrictions and norms except those invented on the fly. Recently, the people of Russia have been panicking drastically because, as of today, about 1 million Russian men left the country within within 2 weeks of the first 2 weeks of mobilization. Russian men started fleeing the country in the first space. What waits here soon, and how is Putin changing his tactics? What is the plan on Russian forces? By shelling Ukraine's energy infrastructure, the enemy is trying to break the will of our government and Ukrainians and force us to sit down at the negotiation table on Russia's term. This is what the current tactics are aimed at, and unfortunately, we don't see an end to it yet. Many experts say Russia will soon run out of the missiles and drones, but personally, I don't yet see the bottom of this barrel. The fact is that these drones and missiles from Iran are under a separate contract. An analytical note by the RAND Corporation recently appeared saying that Egypt had a large contract for purchasing 64 Su 35 fighters from Russia, but Egypt pulled out of the deal and it went to Iran. So either by the barter Iran will receive these fighters or in some other way. Still, they provide Russia with drones, not only Shahid, but also more advanced modifications, plus ballistic missiles. So 5 billion is a sufficient number of reasonably cheap drones and missiles. Although this weapon is not completely technologically perfect, it is deadly. Therefore, we need to prepare for a new wave of further struggle. Building an echelon air defense system in Ukraine, unfortunately, will take more than a year. Therefore, we will not receive it in the near future. Moreover, when it comes to the transfer from NATO countries of the equipment they have, using the same tanks as an example, the main reason for refusing their transfer was that it weakens national defense. So, new mobilization in Russia. As we know, it started a month ago. Mobilization in the Russian Federation cuts labor potential. Some experts believe that the GDP of Russia will fall by 5% next year, a significant contribution to this is the loss of workers. All the more so as the most severe was the escape from mobilization. And as I told you before, the statistics reach almost a million of citizens fleeing the country. Therefore, a pause in the war would not be a problem for Russia now. That's what they're hitting on. This is they are now trying to mow down Ukraine's energy sector to undermine our potential. In addition, as you know, Ukraine exports electricity to the European Union. Therefore, the Russian Federation is trying to present Ukraine in the way that is unfavorable to the European Union. Putin said that if Ukraine stops exporting electricity, then it will be an unreliable partner. Although everyone understands this, the Kremlin will spread another agenda through its channels in order to Europe to put pressure on Ukraine even more to sit down at negotiation table with Russia. The situation at the front is the main driving force of all change processes in our favor. The victories of Ukraine armed forces at the front are the main trigger for the rest of the processes, both internal in Russia and for our partners' support, and for raising morale in the rear of Ukraine. What is happening now on the Eastern Front, and especially on the Southern Front, inspires optimistic hopes. The commander of Russian army in Ukraine, Serhiy Sorovikin, announced difficult decision the other day. What does it mean? As a rule, they try in advance to accuse someone of what they intend to do themselves. I would personally consider that it quite possible to blow up the Kakhovska hydropower plant dam. I also consider some sabotage as a Parisian nuclear power plant, and it's very possible. This deportation of the population from Kherson that is already taking place is crucial as well. The deportation of the citizens of Kherson is a human shield for the retraining troops. Russia set up experiments on the crossing of the civilian population by boats. They launched a ferry with a company and equipment in the middle and on the both sides these boats, and we cannot longer shoot them. And most likely, after that, there will be an attempt to erase Kherson from the face of the earth to repeat the Mariupol situation. This is like a punishment to Ukrainians for the fact that we dared to disobey the Russian Tsar. For people who are not limited by morality, this is a matter of spitting. They are already preparing such positions so that after withdrawing their troops, they'll be able to reach Kherson with long range artillery and erase the city from the earth. Glory to Ukraine and glory to Ukrainian soldiers who defend our land. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please check please check out my other episodes of War in Ukraine. Thank you.